Hey guys, welcome to the Centre Bounce. We're loving all the content. We're loving all the views that you guys are giving. In today's video, we're talking Adelaide versus West Coast. It's the preseason game. Stay tuned. I was really hoping that West Coast would at least be able to bounce back a little bit or show some more of the team from what we saw in the preseason game last week, where they just looked sluggish and a few players had cramps and it was 38 degrees. What did you kind of have coming into this game?
I was hoping that we'd see more from West Coast as well, especially coming off the fact that we had that incredible chat with Jesse of True Footy. If you haven't watched that video, we went for almost an hour talking West Coast, which is unbelievable to me. I can't believe we did that, but it was very fun. Please head on over and check that out if you haven't. But I honestly knew, I was very confident. I know everyone's been talking up the Adelaide Crows this year and how good they're going to be. So I really didn't have much expectations for the West Coast Eagles. For me, it was more so looking at specifically some players, and we're going to talk about them, but mainly a number one draft pick, for example,
Yes.
who was very much talked about, and I was on the stream very much trying to defend him, and sort of been like, no, let's calm the farm a little bit. Let's not kill the kid, but he had a decent game, as did West Coast for about a quarter and a bit before it all just went to shit very quickly.
Yeah, obviously we're talking about Harley Reed here. There's a few other players that I was quite excited to see, more so from the Adelaide team. So how would Sam Berry go with we know how good of a player he is, but what would the midfield mix look like? What would Jordan Dawson and Laird's kind of time look like? Because a lot of people are looking to pick them in their Supercoach teams. Would Dan Curtin play as well? It was a very interesting game, and it kind of created more questions than answers for a lot of us who maybe don't have any premiums in our forward line this season.
Yeah, it seems to be the year where people can go really light in the forward line. I know a lot of people different decided to do that when they looked at, for example, how the Gold Coast Suns played against the Giants, and all of a sudden we were all sort of looking at only starting one premium in Flanders, and now there's a bunch of people jumping off of Flanders himself. So all of a sudden now people are thinking, wow, we can go a bit mid-price or heavy. We can sort of maybe move away from a guy like Reed and trade him out for someone like a Nat Fife, who had a very promising preseason as well. So I think this extra game has definitely given people a bit more clarity in relation to whether or not they should start someone like a Harley Reed, maybe even Elliot Yeo. But I think the Adelaide team continues to give people headaches in terms of how they're going to progress and how they're going to play moving forward.
Yeah, it's really tough. I know a few of these teams, especially, I don't know if they've made it that way or just figured things out, like how it's worked out, but it seemed like all of the earlier games this week were all the round zero teams. And the last four or so, well, would be last six or so, have all been not playing round zero. They get that extra time off. So coming out of this game, it's like, do we pick these players? Do we not? What's going to happen? We kind of have to just go off judgment, potentially another preseason, week of preseason practice.
Yep, exactly. So I guess we can sort of now, having prefaced the game, I guess we can sort of move to the game itself now, and we can look at the stats to our trusty fan footy website here. The Adelaide Crows getting the job done very, very easily against the West Coast Eagles. And it was so easy. The only person to turn up for the Eagles was Jeremy McGovern, who we definitely are not going to go anywhere near because of his historic soft tissue injuries, which have been very, very many. So not going to go with him at all. There was also this guy. I mean, I sort of mentioned him a little bit. Did you like what you see from Elliot Yeo?
I think we're going to have to do a video on guys who are, probably 450K to like 600K. What's our thoughts on them? Especially the guys between 450 and like 500K. Just kind of our thoughts on those players. But Elliot Yeo, look, he looked okay. He looked decent. I think he might have spent a little bit of longer time on the bench. He did play 76% game time, which generally is maybe a tiny bit less than the full 4 quarters. So I don't know if they rested him a point, or I think in the second quarter he was basically absent. So maybe that kind of helped with that scoring there. But I've always had my bias against Elliot Yeo. It's up to you if you want to pick him or not, but he has played through the last 2 practice games. He has looked fit through the preseason. If he comes out and scores you 100 average, maybe you get him at like, or get to offload him at, low 500 Ks, and there's some money there to make and some early scoring and obviously no buy. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts at the moment. Trap or no trap, I'm not sure, but he's an option for some people.
Yeah, no, not for me. I don't like picking old people with a lot of soft tissue injuries. He was busting his gut continuously, so he tried really hard to perform well in that game, and he scored a 96. And I suppose we can sort of show, though, that he wasn't playing off the back line. He definitely was playing very much around the ball. As you can see, the amount of CBAs that he had was up there with Kelly. He managed to get through unscathed. He wasn't particularly managed. So I guess if you're big on Elliot Yeo, that sort of would have ticked a few of your boxes. But for me, he's not an option. We then move to the next guy underneath him, Harley Reed. I stand vindicated. This kid was good. He played a little bit off halfback, but his best and his most eye-catching was when he was playing in his natural position around the ball, where he got his hands on it, some great clearances, and you can see playing mostly in central midfield. He got the ball. Playing off halfback, the dude looked a little bit lost. It's not where he's supposed to play. He's not an outside guy. He's a burst, high-impact type of player, and having him around the ball is exactly where he's supposed to be, and he almost kicked a nice snag as well. So well done to you, Harley. Well done for bouncing back from a tough game last week.
Well, that was it. I mean, I was talking shit about him kind of maybe coming in there and needing, a little bit of preseason time or some VFL reserves, whatever, waffle. But yeah, definitely looked good. And I'm not sure if the fans will have noticed this, obviously, coming off the stats, but he was getting focused a bit from the Adelaide Crows team. There was some footage, I don't know if it was Laird and a few of the other players actually taking it to him, and he stood his own there. And that kind of showed us a lot. He doesn't need to make you, 400K. He doesn't need to be a keeper. But you're expecting 200K out of him. And if you can average like between a 70 and a 90, he's going to be able to do that for you pretty easy. So back on the Harley Reed train, as you say, I don't think halfback's his position. And I think if they kind of figure out what's going to happen a lot more in the team, he won't end up being halfback as much as what we've seen, at least in the first practice game. So, yeah, as you say, 60% CBAs. There's no one else really on that list from West Coast that I really care about too much in Supercoach. Cohen Livingston is probably the one that I'm really sad about, because a lot of people did have him as a 102K rookie, and you probably now have to upgrade into Naismith. So you got to put 20K for the pick.
Poor kid's a 102K, and it's going to lose us money.
Yeah.
He's going to lose money at 102K.
I don't think I think that's the lowest you can go. So I think technically he could score a -2 and not go backwards, but like that's as low as you can go.
The only one way you can go, and that's up, I guess, for Paul Livingston. Rawlinson is still keeping an eye on him, on Lock Rawlinson, because he scored the 40 points, but he's 102K rookie mid-forward. We don't necessarily expect or want the world from him. The 7 disposals, 3 tackles. But what I liked about it was that he had 74% time on ground, which is a lot more than a bunch of other people as well. So you never know. Keep an eye on him. If you're strapped for cash and you want to field the best possible field that you can, maybe at the expense of your bench, you don't want to pay up for some of those expensive rookies, which we seem that we almost need to this year, given how good they are. But if they're so good, but if you don't want to go down that path and you'd much rather focus all your money on your field and you want to skimp some corners, then keep an eye on Rollins and see if he's named in round 1. Other than that, I don't think there's anyone else that is relevant for the West Coast Eagles. I guess we can sort of move our way to the Adelaide Crows.
Yeah.
And this is just this performance just basically tells us trade. Make sure you have a trade available every week, every time West Coast is about to play. You can trade in there, Ruckman.
It's getting to that point, right, where we saw it a little bit in the North Melbourne game today, but it's basically who's playing West Coast this week. Cool, you're a key forward, you're in. Cool, you're a ruckman, you're probably in their side as well. Cool, you're like an explosive forward midfielder who can kick goals, like the first, 2 or 3 people on that Adelaide list.
Yep.
Cool, you're in our team as well. So I don't know if this is going to be the most fluid season of Supercoach yet, but there's going to be a lot of opportunities to do like what they do in fantasy and just let play for matchups. Riley O'Brien, we know how big of a ceiling this guy is, and he did have a lot of contested possessions, yes. He did have a lot of free kicks, yes, which probably drew him like 30-odd Supercoach points. So it wasn't as bad, but yeah, he was their main ruck. He was just doing what he needed to do and just beat up on like the work experience kid, basically. So, I mean, if you've got him in draft, like you're very happy. Moving down the list, it's probably Isaac Rankin is the most confusing one. And I know that your current iteration of your Supercoach team has like 2 guys who potentially could be premiums, but I know I've seen a few forums who are like, Isaac Rankin's cheap. They've spoken about him basically getting bulk CBAs and becoming that player that we want. And he's just come off 4 goals in like 60% game time, scoring a 140. Like, it's tempting, Joe.
Yeah. 461K. He had 28.6% CBA. So it's not like he had a lot in order to get to this type of score of 138. So it's not like it's something that's going to be unreplicable or unsustainable for him to have only 28% of the CBAs. That's very, very normal. That's not bulk CBAs, and we know that it's possible to score really well without it. Now, he's a very clean player. They obviously knew what they were doing, trying to bring him across to the Crows and paying him what they're paying him. The guy is an absolute superstar. And everything that we've been reading in the preseason in our scouting is that this guy was penciled, was earmarked to play a bit more on the ball, and he was performing incredibly well. And we saw that happen last week in the practice game, and now we've seen it this week. The big thing for me is that it's so hard to read into it because of the opposition that they played against. The West Coast Eagles just quite simply are not real competition. And if anyone is going to dominate, as you say, it's going to be those midfielders that can push forward and hit the scoreboard. They're the ones who are going to absolutely flourish in these games. And so, yes, Rankin looked great. He had a decent role and he looked incredibly well. But for me, it's a question mark over, are you willing to pay that much money? $461,000. You're banking on this guy being a primo. You've got Flanders right there next to him. You know what I mean? So, and Flanders has done it before in the back half of last year. He went over 100 average. So that's a question for you. Obviously, Flanders has an early buy, whereas Rankin doesn't. But still, you can you've seen it before from Flanders. You've never seen it from Rankin before. Can you believe that this sort of performance is going to be sustainable moving forward? He only had 59% time on ground. Like, how messed up is that for 138?
It's not bad. Not bad. Imagine if it was like 80%, would have come off with like 8 goals or some nonsense. I think the only saving grace is the fact that he is such a high price. And as you say, we haven't seen it before. So you could afford to fade him if you put in like a James Jordan or someone else who you know are going to make more than that 150K, or possibly make more than what the current trade of a value of a trade price is, which is probably like 115 to 120K. So if you've got someone who can make more than that from that, Rankin's probably not a must-have, but potentially you're missing out on a whole bunch of scoring. I think he does quite well at Adelaide Oval, and they're playing a lot of games at Adelaide Oval, I think, to start with, similar to Port Adelaide. So, yeah, it's going to be fun for those people that pick him up, and we see it all over the socials. I'm glad I started Isaac Rankin. Stuff all the other premiums. They're not going to be any good. Yeah. What about Sam Berry today, Joe?
Sam Berry... I always have to keep reminding myself, they played West Coast. They played West Coast. They played
he did well
West
last
Coast.
week, though.
He did all right last week, but I don't know. I feel like this week he was more prominent, and it's hard not to be when you're up against a lot less competition, a lesser of a competition. And he didn't feature last year. I'm sure this guy could be facing an ultimatum. He's probably got a lot of pressure on himself to really take that next step, because I know there was a lot of expectation on him last year, and he just fizzled out. Like, he just never popped off as everyone sort of thought that he was going to pop off. So I can totally understand if this guy's coming in this year with a real chip on his shoulder, very invigorated. I guess similar to a Matt Crouch, in that both of them weren't really given much opportunity to shine last year, and now that they're in this year, probably trying to grab their opportunity with both hands. And so I think Berry probably might have played his best game this year. I mean, he had almost 50% of the CBAs, very close to Dawson. So I don't know whether that sort of split is going to continue and Sam Berry is going to continue to get it. I know Laird has been penciled for playing a bit ahead of the ball this year for a little bit more, but for me, until I've seen what Adelaide's looking like, I'm probably not going to go with him, even though he is so cheap in the midfield. He's almost like a rookie price player at 226,000.
If we had similar things to last year where, we were stacking the back line and stacking the forward line and kind of had the midfield as our cash generation area, then 100% throw Sam Berry in there alongside all the other mid prices. There has been some reports, though, that he is going to take a little bit more of that mid time, and that's why we've seen a little bit of a drop off of a Laird and Dawson in that position. Laird's doing a bit more forward. There's talk that, hey, he might even be forward eligible as a Supercoach selection come round 7, which would be amazing. And then Dawson kind of playing a little bit more back, considering how all their troubles in the back line with injuries and whatnot. So Berry could be very interesting for us. If people are fading a McKercher, I can totally see them throwing an extra 20K and grabbing a Sam Berry and just being happy with it.
Gee, that's all it takes. 20,000 between McKercher and Berry, and you could be in for some great scores. But then again, he's not playing West Coast every week. No, he's not playing West Coast every week. Matt Crouch, 114. Bit more, he's a handball happy sort of guy. 9 kicks to 14 handballs, but again, he had very low time on ground, only the 59% time on ground. And we look at his CBAs, 57.1%. So he's there. He's up there with Laird, more than Dawson. It seems like what we're seeing from him this preseason.
I want him in my team. I just think there's opportunity there, but the price and just the awkwardness of choosing players now, there's so many players. We'll do a video on it tomorrow, but there's so many players that are just available and across the selections everywhere that it's like, cool, I've now got 30 players I want in my midfield, Joe. And another 17 I want in my forward. The back line's easy because I've probably got 8 players I want for my back line. So that's easy. But the other 2 positions, it's like, I can't select it. Guys like Matt Crouch, Nick Martin, Elliot Yeo potentially, so many guys I just want to play. Wines and sheesh, man.
You could honestly have a full midfield of these Matt Crouch type price players without any captaincy option, and then just put all the money into the other lines. But the thing is, we'll leave that discussion for another video, honestly, because
pick 7 and then go Bond. That's all you need.
So Crouch, nothing that we've seen today put us off him. He's definitely a very viable selection. Dawson, probably, you can get him cheaper. I mean, he only had the 66% time on ground, which is really low again. But you were always saying?
I'm happy to upgrade into him. I think he's too expensive, and there's guys potentially with some more opportunity. I think he's the one that will take a bit more of the scoring, and your Rory Laird will fall off just for the age demographic and what they kind of offer. Because a lot of what Berry does is similar to what Laird does, right? Like tackles and bursts from the middle, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, Jordan Dawson, man, are you starting him, Joe, or are you going to upgrade into Jordan Dawson? Because he's a top.
No, I'm not starting.
You got to have him in your team at some point.
Yeah, correct, but don't necessarily have to start him. Happy to upgrade to him. He's probably overpriced at where he's at now, which is 647, almost 650,000. Definitely very happy to wait for him to drop in price, which he definitely will. He's not going to stay up there. Plus, especially if he has these seven clanger games again. So, I'm very happy to wait on Dawson and trade him in when he's a lot more juicier. Laird's probably one that we're going to fade completely, I think, for the year. Is he going to be top 8 mid? Maybe not. If he's going to be playing forward of the ball and going to get less CBAs, who knows? But he definitely had the most CBAs, 60.7%, and yet only went 89, having had 26 disposals and being very handball happy. Not a big fan of handball happy players. I definitely want someone who is going to get some kicks because kicks get you more points, get more bang for your disposal. So might just be fading Laird for the year, or hopefully see him with some forward DPP.
If he gets forward DPP, you're in my team. Like that's it. But yeah, I think he's the one that kind of falls off a little bit, as you say. Moving down the list, is there anyone there who's left that we need to talk about? Unfortunately, Riley Thilthorpe looked great, but has been confirmed did a knee and isn't playing round 1. So that's been confirmed today. But anyone else there on the list that you like?
I know someone's asked about Mitch Hinge.
Yeah.
In a previous video, and we didn't really say, go for it. Not sure where the extra scoring comes from. Keep an eye on him, I guess. I again, my point of view is still the same, that I'm not a big fan of him being a top 6 defender, top 6 to 8 defender. Plus, if Adelaide's going to be so good and dominant and the ball doesn't get there very often, then he might not have a chance to score very well. So for me, I'm not big on Hinge. I think they liked, other people using the ball, like Malira was using the ball. I saw Borlade's kick a few times. They even had, what was his name? So Butts is capable of kicking a football, but Chase Jones I saw quite often as well, running off, and he hit the scoreboard a couple of times. Yes, he missed both times, but I don't know. I'm not sure Mitch Hinge is going to be that quarterback distributor that people hoped that he was going to be. So for me, he's a no.
Yeah, for me too. I think there's just, you either, if you're lucky, go Kadeem Coleman and he does really well, you pick up your rookies, or you get your set guys that you're going to play in the back line all year. So Mitch Hinge, I don't think is going to be that guy for us.
And on that note, we will end this review of the practice game between Adelaide and West Coast. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked what you had to see here today, please drop us a like and a subscription. Will greatly help the growth of our channel. Hit that notification bell to make sure you don't miss out on any of the videos that we are pumping out this preseason and during the season proper.
Guys, you know what we're going to say. We've got 2 amazing competitions that you guys can enter this year for free. We've got our tipping competition and also our Supercoach League, where you can win 3 great prizes. The links for those and the information will be down in the description.
Yep, and we will go over the results every week of the tipping and keeping a live tracker of that going every Monday night on our usual Monday night live stream starting at 7:30. So make sure you come across and have some fun with us over there. And you can send us your teams as well for us to answer your questions and review your teams as well. So get on board and join us for the fun.
Guys, we've got about 2 weeks left of the preseason to go, and then we're back into AFL the full season. So hopefully you guys have joined us for the ride. We've got a couple more of these to do, and then some more round 0, and a lot of content during the week. So stay tuned for all of that.
Because here at the Centre Bounce, we do the hard work so that you don't have to.